What's up, everybody? It's Brandon with Jarhead Diagnostics. How are you guys today? Today we're going to go over the basics of the Topdon Think Tool launch. Any other brand that has taken the same oscilloscope and transferred it into their own. We're going to kind of go over the basics of that. That being because all of the systems, Topdon Think Car, launch, and I believe there's a couple others, they all go based off of the launch hardware. So this is like based off of a launch, and then they change it and put their own software in it. So there's a little bit of differences between the all the different brands as far as how the software might interact, but the hardware is the same, so you're going to get the same capabilities out of each brand. It just depends on which software is in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the basics of using the scope, what comes with the Topdon. So this is the one that I have is actually from Topdon. So we're going to go over what comes with the Topdon scope and just the kind of overview of it, and we'll go from there. Now, let's go over what comes with the oscilloscope. And like I said, we're going based off the Topdon. So the Think Car or the launch could come with some slightly different hardware options. I do know that the launch, the outside of it is just a tad bit different. Think Car, I think, is very similar to the Topdon, but internals, like I said, is pretty much the same across the board. So it's going to come with the oscilloscope. The oscilloscope actually usually has this. It's like a little handle that goes like that on it. We removed it because we actually offer a kit to be able to take the Topdon scope and mount it to our scope mounts, and then you can also put it on just like a storage solution, or like we have a kit for the Phoenix Max to be able to mount it to the back of the Phoenix Max. So that's why ours has this off of it. But typically whenever you get the scope, it's going to have this guy. It's going to have that on there. But for us, what we're going to do is just yeet it. The next thing, the Topdon does come with some accessories. The accessories that it comes with are just some very basic stuff. I will say this, it does come with 2 leads, but my suggestion with these is as soon as you get this scope, you want to take these leads and just yeet them. The quality on the factory leads are very bad. You'll have a lot of noise in the channels, which will think that you're having a bad reading on the vehicle when really it's just scope leads. If you don't have money for other leads and that's all you got, just remember that if you do use them, you do have a high probability of having some improper data captures, mainly just because of the leads capabilities. So now I've got that out of the way. It does come with a bunch of alligator clips, which are excellent. It comes with enough for each channel. Shows 3 here. We're going to be using this later. I went ahead and took 2 out and put them on my little fake car. It does come with some back probes. They're pretty decent back probes. They are a little thick, so if you're going to be going in to back probe a bunch of connectors, just be forewarned that the thickness behind the initial probe section right here, it does get kind of thick, so you might not be able to do multiple pins side by side on connectors. Owner's manual, but like most men do, you just throw it out of the way, right? USB cable for the scope. It does come with some attenuator leads. This is really good if you're checking LIN lines. It'll help out with those as well because of the impedance that's required for that. If you don't know what attenuation is on an oscilloscope, let's just say, for instance, you're checking primary ignition on an ignition coil. Sometimes you will get a voltage kick that will exceed the max voltage for the scope. So you would take the attenuator, you'd put it in line with the ignition coil on that primary side, and it will attenuate it down. So like these are a 10-to-1 attenuator. That's meaning for every 10 volts that goes into this lead, it's only going to put 1 volt into the scope. So that's what these are for. So that's what comes in the basic kit. Now, one thing that I would suggest whenever you do get this scope is update your leads. we offer Warwick leads, and actually the colors do match. It is yellow, blue, red, green. I would strongly suggest updating your leads. Like I said, we do offer these on our website. We offer them in multiple different sizes, but just changing the leads on this scope is going to greatly increase the abilities of this scope. One, the length. These factory leads are maybe 5 or 6 feet. Let's take a look. Yeah, these factory leads are like maybe 5 feet, 5.5. These ones are 3M leads, like 3 meters, so you're looking at right at 10 feet. We do offer them in a 5M, which is right at 15 feet. But I would strongly suggest updating your leads whenever you get this. Price varies depending on where you get the leads from, what brand you get them. I think our 3M Warwicks currently at today's market is like $120 or $130 for the 3M, but strongly suggest getting that. And then also, I would suggest getting our oscilloscope mount kit for this, and the reason being is a lot of times with oscilloscopes, you will see that the shops, technicians, or whatever, will just take the scope and throw it in the bottom drawer and never get used. Mainly because of the setup. It does take a little bit to set it up. It does take a little bit to try and get everything around the vehicle and stuff. But if you have everything ready to go, you're going to grab it a whole lot more. You can have it all just kind of ready to go. It makes life a whole lot easier. So for us, we'll make a scope mount for it. Like I said, for the Phoenix Max, it does bolt to the back of the Phoenix Max. If you buy just the universal one, you should be able to attach it to the back of some of your other ones, which is some double-sided tape, and do the same thing, and it should just slide in. But with the Phoenix Max, we do know that it does fit on the back of the Phoenix Max. You still can use a kickstand while testing, and if you have the docking station, you can leave it on the docking station altogether, and if you have the docking station on your roll car, it just allows everything just to be put together all nice and neat. To hook the scope up to the tablet, literally all you do is you take the scope, on the bottom of it, it's got its own USB port, you plug in the supplied USB cable to it, and then on the side of the scan tool, it's going to have a USB port. Now, this scope will go with pretty much any of the professional series of the Topdon scan tools. I'm not sure which ones it will go to on the launch and the thank card, just because I've never really dealt with those brands. But I have dealt with Topdon quite a bit, and I do know that pretty much any of the professional series that they have, the scope option is available for it. So you just buy the Topdon scope and plug it into that scan tool, and you'll be able to use it in a tablet form. Alright, now that we got the scan tool powered up, all you have to do is go to the modules, and for most of them it's all the same. You just go into the modules, and then you're going to select, oh, it auto did it for you just because it's plugged in. Let me go back. You're going to want to select the oscilloscope. With the Topdon Phoenix Max, once you plug it in, it might be like this for other ones. Pretty much, this is going to be your home screen for the oscilloscope. Now, let's kind of go over some basic functions of it. Now that we have the scope up and running, let's go over some basic functions of the scope. As you can see, these different lines right here, that's your different channels. So right now, I've currently got channels 1, 2, 3, 4 on. Let's turn on 4. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, and 4 are on. If you want to adjust the voltage reading as far as the scale of it up and down, you can just click and drag it, and it's going to change it for you. It's pretty easy to adjust where you want each channel to go to. That's going to be very important whenever you're doing different testing. Sometimes you want one channel to overlay the others. That's going to allow you to. Now, let's go into very basic functions. Like I said, this is going to be a basic video. Let's say you don't want any other channel but one. The way that you turn off the channel is you have your channel buttons right here. You have to hit the channel buttons twice. If you push it once, it's going to come up with different settings for that channel. You just hit it again, and it turns off that channel. Now we've only got channel 1 running. So over here, this is your voltage setting for this channel. So what this is 5 volt. What this is 5 volts per division. If you can see, you've got dotted lines going this way horizontally. That's a division. So that is your scaled division for voltage going up. So if you want to adjust the voltage, turn back on 1. Like right now, it is set at 5 volts per division. Alright, so we're right on that 1 division. If you see, because we're not perfect on it, it's 4.8, 9.8, and then all it is doing is adding 5 volts up. Adjusted to 10, as you can see, it's now changed to the 10 volt. One thing that I do feel is kind of misleading, like if you're just to look at this setting, you would think that the bigger one would be adding voltage and the smaller one is taking away voltage, but it's actually the smaller is adding voltage, the bigger is taken away. And the reason being is if you hit the bigger one, it is actually taking the scope and essentially zooming in on that voltage. So it's going to make 5 volts bigger on the screen. If you hit the smaller one, it's going to make 5 volts smaller on the screen. So that's the way you have to look at it. Do you want your voltage to be smaller, or do you want your voltage to show up more on the screen? So the easiest way to think of it is push the bigger one and you're wanting to zoom in on your voltage, push the smaller one and you're wanting to zoom out on your voltage. That's your easiest way to explain it. The next biggest thing is your time base. And it's going to be kind of the exact same thing, is as you push the bigger, you're actually zooming in on time, and if you're pushing the one with 2 humps, you're actually zooming out on your time. Or you can simply press that and select what time base you want. Setting your time base is going to be very important on different items that you're testing, because some of them you might want to check at like 100 milliseconds. Like typically whenever I do my relative compression checks and doing that sort of testing, I'm usually at 100 millivolts. But if I'm checking CAN network, you don't necessarily want to be at 100 millivolts. You might want to be at 1 millisecond or faster to be able to capture whatever it is you have on your screen. Now up here, this is your sample ratings. What this means is right now across the screen it is checking 100,000 points across the screen. If I set it to 1 million points across the screen, that means that it's checking even more information across the screen. 10 million, same thing. That can be adjusted. Like I said, it really all depends on what you're checking. If you're checking something that doesn't necessarily have to be extremely fine detail, leave it at 100,000, and it's going to allow you to capture more data over a period of time than it is at the 100, because this scope only has but so much data that it can store before it erases it. So you're going to have different sections across it, and if you are capturing too much data on one single screen, it's not going to allow you to view it over time as much. The next big thing is cursors, and we'll kind of get into cursors here in just a little bit. But if you want to set up your cursors, you just hit cursors. You hit your cursors. I hit the horizontal. It's just going to pull up the horizontal cursors back and forth. And what that allows you to do is, let's just say you're wanting to measure the voltage difference across it. Or you're wanting to see, let's say you're doing a relative compression and you might have one cylinder that's just a little bit weaker than the other. You might want to put your cursors up to view all of your information across the screen and see which ones are above or below. But then it also will read you out whatever voltage you have it set at. So let's say you're wanting to read the voltage of X. You would put your cursor on X, and it allows you to set and read the actual voltage for that item. The next one is going to be, this allows you to check cylinders. The biggest thing back to relative compressions, that you want to figure out which cylinder is which in the relative compression. You would find your firing order. You would set how many cylinders. You click OK, and then your outsides are your 720s. You would set your 720s, and we'll kind of go into this here in a little bit, and that'll allow you to figure out your cylinders. As you can see, we have some data running across the screen. Let's set up our channels. As you can see, the green channel, which is channel 4, you can't even view any of that data. So let's set it up. So we want to add some more voltage to it. And we want to drag it down. There we go. Alright, now we got channel 4 being able to be viewed more. We have channel 3. channel 3. Let's add just a tad bit more scaling to this. So we want to lower the voltage. See, I'm making it bigger now. It's just because I'm reducing the amount of voltage that's on that screen for that channel. And then let's do the same for this one. There we go. All right. Now let's stop it. Now this is going to be a typical check that you might do during a relative compression. A lot of people will grab the crank sensor and then they will grab a cylinder sink, and then this is on average what a relative compression will look like. Sometimes it'll look a little bit different. Like I said, I'm just using a fake car over here, so I'm not getting an exact replica of it. But it kind of gives us, I have it set up right now where my ignition is here and it's firing just for top dead center, which is typical during a relative compression check. So it allows us to check all this information on the screen. Let's pull one up. All right, now that I have this set up, like I said, this is kind of just a rough look at what you would be looking at with a relative compression. And like I said earlier, we would want to check our firing order to see which cylinder might be misfiring. So we're going to pull up our cursors. You're going to set your cursors. If you don't know, on a standard ignition, not a waste spark, you're only going to have one ignition fire per 720 degrees. So, my fat fingers will kind of fatten it. Boom. Now we can see, you can see on these lines right here, we can actually look at which cylinder is which. Then you would check your firing order. For this, we're just going to say firing order is 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have it synced on 1, so firing on 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you could check your cylinders. Then, let's say that you think you might be having a crank sensor acting up on that cylinder. You could even come down here, drag one down, boom. And then let's say you want to zoom in. Here's kind of a big feature is, let's say you think you have a mess up right here and you want to zoom in. All you do is you just pinch and zoom. Now you can zoom in on that channel where you think the mess up might be happening and check it. You want to zoom back out, pinch, zoom back out. It's that easy. So right now we just have channel 4 running on the ignition coil that we have on this fake car. So I've got it zoomed in pretty good. I mean, I could zoom out. You can see, I mean, it's running quite a bit, right? So let's zoom in. Let's say you want to zoom in on that one. Zoom in some more, some more, some more. Now, you'd go to trigger, edge. You want to go to the falling edge. Now it's triggered on that. Now all that's going to do is leave, whenever it reads that pulse for that channel, it's going to bring it up and leave it on the screen. What that allows you to do is, let's just say for instance, I don't know, every third or fourth time that this thing fires, it's acting up. You could set the trigger to where it's only showing it on the screen, and you could watch it as it's acting up. Or, I mean, if you wanted to, you could just add more on the screen. So, but that's the basic function of triggers. If you want to learn more about this, I definitely recommend going to training. Just so that way you can actually learn more in depth on scopes. Like I said, this is just a very basic, this is how you set it up, and this is kind of some of the different things. Right now we're on channel 4, and then one thing that I do like about this is it does have built-in test features. So if you are new to scoping and you want to figure out how you test XYZ, you can go in here and let's just say you want to do a 12 volt charging. You would click circuits, 12 volt charging, and then over here it's going to tell you that it wants you to use channels 1 and channel 2. Channel 1 with voltage, channel 2 with current, and then it's going to tell you where to hook it up. Let's say you want to figure out how to read a crank sensor. You click there and it's just going to tell you how to do it. Please connect channel 1 BNC banana. You're going to hook up channel 1, and then you're going to hook up to the signal wire of that sensor, and then the other one to ground. Accelerator pedal, same thing. Voltage, networks. It's going to want you to do it. flex ray is the one that I was telling you about earlier, where you might need to use a attenuator when checking flex ray, because a normal scope lead with the normal oscilloscope could actually cause the flex ray to not read properly. So you would want to use an attenuator right there. That's why the P130A is that attenuator scope lead that I was telling you about earlier. This tells you how to do a cam and crank correlation check. Now, for those of you who are wondering, can this check CAN networks? This is just a simulated CAN network on this fake car over here, but it's going to give you kind of a lot of the same information that you might be checking. Here's another thing that you do need to worry about whenever you are checking stuff is, especially with CAN networks, is you need to make sure that the channels are set to the same. So channel 3 on right now is set at 500 millivolts, and channel 2 is set at 2 volts. So let's set this to 500 millivolts. So now they're kind of entwined, which is what they should be. Boom. So now we got CAN network up and running. If you want to zoom in on it to actually view the data packets, you can actually view in on the data packets. So this scope is fast enough to check CAN network. Now, we do have a zoom feature on this. So let's read this. We're going to stop it. So this is your start stop button right here. Run, stop. Now, let's say for instance you want to zoom in right here on these data packets. You would just hit zoom, and now you're zoomed in. Or you can zoom back out. And then you can even just do your manual zoom. So, I mean, this thing is an excellent budget scope. Is this a top of the line scope with all the bells and whistles and excellent for everything that you need to do? No. But all in all, for 90% of everything that you're going to be testing and 95%, this is going to check everything that you have. It does have its downfalls, which we can go over in a different video of the pros and cons of this scope, but that's not really what this video is about. This video is more or less about basic settings with this scope. So I hope that this video is going to allow you guys to kind of at least break out your scope that you got with your Phoenix Max if you did it, or if you bought this scope separately for one of your other Topdon scan tools or Think Car, Launch, whatever. I hope this video helps you at least get the scope out of the box and set up and kind of going over your basic functions. One thing that I will recommend, and I tell this to anybody that's asking about scopes and which scope's the best and how do I learn to do this and how do I learn to do that, I will say training. Go to some training events. That's going to be your best option as far as truly learning. YouTube, there's some excellent YouTube channels that are out there that go over scopes. Super Mario Diagnostics is one, Pine Hollow's one, but there's several others out there that's going to kind of give you all the information that you need. And once you start learning a scope, it doesn't matter what scope you grab, just as long as you know that you need your voltage and your time bases. You can use pretty much any scope to test the majority of everything. So if you're watching a video and they're using an oscilloscope for, we'll just say a pico, look at their settings that they're using and you can still use it on this scope. You just have to figure out how to set it up on this individual scope. So get out there, do some training. I will suggest that whenever you are first starting out with this, is to go to a known good vehicle. Don't pull this out of the box and hook it up to a broken vehicle and think this is going to solve my issues. It's not. You're just going to get confused. You're going to get frustrated, and you're not going to want to use it. So take the scope out of the box if you have it, hook it up to a car, and start doing some known good testing. So that way you can figure out all the different settings that you need to play with on a known good car. So when you go to a broken car, you can at least know what you're doing. Hopefully this video helps. Hopefully it didn't ramble too much. But what I will say is it's a good scope. I like it that it can be all in one with your scan tool, so that way you don't have to have multiple different items whenever you're purchasing, especially if you're a technician buying this. Which if you're a tech buying your own scan tool and oscilloscope, it might be worth looking for a shop that's going to invest in you. Versus, maybe you need to start looking at a change to a shop that invests in you like that. But all in all, I think it's a good scope for the money, and I hope that this, like I said before, I hope this video just allows you to understand the basic settings of this, to at least get in, hook up the vehicles, and start doing some testing. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful day. Like I said, I hope this helped. Brandon with Jarhead Diagnostics. Always remember, did you die today, bro?